The state of Nebraska has fucked around and found out as they are ready to go bankrupt in the next 6 months.
I have a question for the rest of America. Does anyone even care about Nebraska? Does anyone even care?
These Nebraskan farmers, and I would love to hate on them. But we have to root for them, because if these small farms go out of business, who's going to buy up these small farms? It's going to be the corporations. And we're going to be even more fucked than we are now.
Guess what? I do not care about Nebraska going bankrupt in 6 months. I do not care. I do not care.
We knew that the immigrants would get deported and he was coming after immigrants, yet we still voted for it. Overwhelmingly voted for our own demise. I was talking to my husband last night, and I have to admit that it seems a bit foolish now when you think about it like that we voted for something that is now putting us directly out of business.
Hey, Nebraska, is this you? Come on up to the front of the classroom. I have some information for you.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
Hey, Nebraska, I hear that you get to be Trump's next bankruptcy. Good for you. Way to go. See, your racism and your transphobia and your hatred of women was just bigger than your sense of self-preservation. Yes, it was. And now you're going to lose your granddaddy's farm.
Nebraska ranchers are so upset. They're going to lose their quote unquote 300-year-old ranches. Let's see, it's 2025. So that would be 1725? Were there white people having ranches in Nebraska in 1725?
I'm sorry, but y'all voted for this shit. Y'all voted for this. So yeah, nobody cares about Nebraska because y'all did it to yourselves. Y'all voted for that crazy orange man, and y'all voted Don Bacon and Deb Fischer back into office. So yeah, none of us really care about Nebraska. And y'all voted for the two worst governors ever, Pete Ricketts and Jim Pillen.
Welcome back to the channel, where we are about to break down the latest FAFO moments in America. Today we are talking about Nebraska farmers. Yes, the same ones who proudly voted for Trump, now crying because they can't find workers to keep their farms running. Why? Because the very administration they supported has been deporting the immigrant labor force they depended on. Now these farmers are in full panic mode, losing money, going bankrupt, and scrambling to figure out what went wrong. Meanwhile, Americans online are roasting them for voting against their own interest. It's another classic case of F around and find out. So let us dive into this TikTok reaction and see what people have to say about these mega farmers getting reality check. Stay tuned, because I've got a lot to say about this situation.
The state of Nebraska has fucked around and found out as they are ready to go bankrupt in the next 6 months. Their state's economy relies heavily on agriculture, and over 70% of their workforce is from undocumented immigrants. Knowing this, they voted for Trump, hoping that he would get rid of the undocumented immigrants. And now they are severely understaffed across the entire state, unable to find enough workers to replace the undocumented immigrants who supplied their state with enough workforce. This is the find out stage of fuck around and find out. In the next 6 months, the state of Nebraska will be entirely bankrupt, unable to support itself, and be looking for a bailout from the federal government. All because they let their racism and hate towards immigrants be more important than their economic livelihoods. There's nothing to feel bad about here. They voted for this. They knew exactly what they were voting for. Now they have what they wanted. Let's see how it turns out for them.
Maybe y'all saw the news out of Nebraska today. Apparently our entire state is going to go bankrupt in 2 quarters. Me and my husband owned a cattle ranch here, and I can confirm that all of the cattle ranchers here overwhelmingly voted for Trump. We support him. We voted for him. Something like 70% of our entire workforce is undocumented immigrants, and they straight up are not showing up for work anymore. They have all either fled the country, fled the state. They don't want to get raided while at work, so they have just moved on to work somewhere else. And straight up, we are going to go bankrupt now. We are going to go bankrupt. And yeah, we voted. We knew that the immigrants would get deported and he was coming after immigrants, yet we still voted for it. Overwhelmingly voted for our own demise. I was talking to my husband last night, and I have to admit that it seems a bit foolish now when you think about it like that we voted for something that is now putting us directly out of business.
I'm seeing a lot of hate towards these Nebraskan farmers, and I would love to hate on them. But we have to root for them, because if these small farms go out of business, who's going to buy up these small farms? It's going to be the corporations. And we're going to be even more fucked than we are now. They're just going to be able to rule everything, price gouge us on everything. So, as much as I don't want to be supportive, we kind of have to support them. And, do anything we can to help them out, even though they voted for the wrong person.
For everyone to call me a bad person again in my comments, but guess what? I do not care about Nebraska going bankrupt in 6 months. I do not care. I do not care. Maybe a few other of those red states should go bankrupt in 6 months so the blue states can swoop in to save them, so they can understand that we are not the bad ones. We are not the poor ones. We are not the ones who cannot survive under the orange turds' crazy policies. But you know why I don't feel bad for Nebraska? You know why? Because I believe I heard 65% of their workforce is undocumented people, which means they're not coming to work anymore, which means work's not happening, which means all the farmers in Nebraska are going to go bankrupt because they all went out there and voted against their neighbors. 65% of neighbors who are immigrants, okay? Fuck around and find out at this point. You know what I mean? And of course, I do feel bad for those blue people in Nebraska who did not vote for this. So unfortunate. That's what you get for being racist and not wanting immigrants in this country, even though they're paying taxes and contributing. So,
Hey, Nebraska, I hear that you get to be Trump's next bankruptcy. Good for you. Way to go. See, your racism and your transphobia and your hatred of women was just bigger than your sense of self-preservation. Yes, it was. And now you're going to lose your granddaddy's farm. See, just like during the pandemic, when there were all of these subsidies and bailouts for farmers, but they went to the mega corporate farms instead of folks like you, you didn't learn your lesson. So now all those tax breaks and handouts and subsidies are going to go to the folks that are waiting in the wings to swoop up your little piece of legacy so they can turn it into just another plot of land on a spreadsheet. So as you're packing up your Mima's mementos, emptying out that room where you raised your babies, loading up that dinner table where hundreds of family gatherings made magic, it's going to be hard. But just know that we're so happy for you, that you got what you voted for. We absolutely love this for you. Peace out. Something, something bootstraps.
Just the funny concepts of caring. Nebraska ranchers are so upset. They're going to lose their quote unquote 300-year-old ranches. Let's see, it's 2025. So that would be 1725? Were there white people having ranches in Nebraska in 1725? Oh, so you guys are liars too, just like Trump, the guy you voted for. And all your workers got up and left. They didn't wait for ICE. So, blessings.
Hey, Nebraska, is this you? Come on up to the front of the classroom. I have some information for you.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
So I know that when you elected Donald Trump, you decided to put all of your apprehensions aside and elect a person who was clear about his intentions. He was going to get rid of undocumented immigrants, which would cause your primary industry, the agriculture industry, to go down. Then he decided to do away with the farm subsidies, basically welfare, that would just annihilate farmers in Nebraska. But wait, there's more. Those two things are just the tip of the iceberg. I was told from a well-placed source that you guys are considering bankruptcy in the not so distant future. They said 6 months or so. So if you combine all of that bad news with these people deciding to vote against you, who desperately need health care. They are and will and have voted for a framework of a budget that would basically annihilate Medicaid in your state. Let me give you a secret. I don't know if you know this, but over 341,000 residents in Nebraska are on Medicaid. That represents $3.7 billion of revenue, of money, of spending that goes to the state of Nebraska for health care. And this is not just health care, just ad nauseum. This is health care that goes to take care of patients and then also goes to fund hospitals in a rural state, hospitals that are desperately needed. Now, this is the kicker. Of that $3 billion or so that goes into the state, the federal government picks up 69%. In essence, only 30% of that money you have to contribute. But the problem is, since you're going bankrupt and all, you're not going to be able to contribute that. You have come into the zone of FAFO. Unfortunately, that map, this map, is going to be your downfall.
I think it's fucking comical to see white Nebraskans get on this app and have the audacity to ask if anyone cares about Nebraska. Be so fucking for real. Like, I'm sorry, but y'all voted for this shit. Y'all voted for this. So yeah, nobody cares about Nebraska because y'all did it to yourselves. Y'all voted for that crazy orange man, and y'all voted Don Bacon and Deb Fischer back into office. So yeah, none of us really care about Nebraska. And y'all voted for the two worst governors ever, Pete Ricketts and Jim Pillen. The governor, Jim Pillen, who signed an executive order the day after that crazy orange man announced that he was implementing immigration and deportation. Governor Jim Pillen signed an executive order for basically all the state agencies to comply with that. So like, yeah, none of them are going to show up to work. Those cattle ranchers and meat packaging plants, there are no more workers, or will be no more workers because of that. Nobody's going to fucking come to work if you're going to call ICE. Y'all have nobody to blame but yourselves, okay? I don't know what to tell you. I literally live here, I'm from here, and y'all will literally believe any bullshit that's on Facebook. Repost it and think it's a fucking credible source, all right? And some of you in Nebraska, unfortunately that I know, think that we're getting an $8,000 fucking stimulus check from Elon Musk and Crazy Orange Man. Hello? It's hard for me to be sympathetic when y'all literally voted for this. Y'all did it to yourselves.
These Nebraska farmers didn't just support Trump once, they've been backing him for years. Even when he made it very clear that he was going after undocumented immigrants, they thought deportations would only affect workers in big cities, not their own farm laborers. Now they're paying the price. One of the biggest MAGA delusions is that Americans would step in and take these farm jobs. But let's be real. These are back-breaking jobs that require skill, experience, and low wage that most Americans won't accept. Now that immigrants are gone, these farmers are struggling to find workers at any price. These same farmers spent years demonizing immigrants, calling them illegals and demanding mass deportations. But the truth is, America's entire agriculture system depends on immigrant workers. Without them, food production slows down, prices go up, and farms shut down. Now that these mega farmers are losing money and struggling to keep their farms running, they are suddenly begging the government for the help. These are the same people who have spent years attacking government programs, carrying anything that helps struggling Americans socialism. They mock people who need food stamps, healthcare assistance, or unemployment benefits. But now, they expect bailouts for their farms. What's even weird is that some of them are asking for more immigrant worker visas to help with the labor shortage. Seriously? After spending years cheering on deportations and anti-migration policies, they now want immigration labor back. They didn't care when Trump and GOP were cracking down on immigrants, but now that it's affecting their pockets, suddenly it's a crisis. You can't have it both ways. You can't scream America first while relying on immigrant labor to keep your business alive. And you definitely don't get to cry for the government help when you voted for politicians who destroyed your own industry. Social media is on fire with reaction to these Nebraska farmers. People are pointing out the hypocrisy, the entitlement, and the absolute lack of self-awareness from these mega voters. They spent years talking down on immigrants, acting like they were a burden to the society. But now, without those same workers, their farms are collapsing. The internet is roasting them for thinking they were untouchable. They believed the policies they supported would only hurt other people. They thought deportation would only affect low-wage workers in cities, not realizing that the entire industry depended on those same people. And now that they are feeling the pain, people have zero sympathy. Some comments are brutal but spot on. A lot of these mega farmers thought that once immigrants were deported, Americans would step in and take over their jobs. That's always a lie. The reality is that farm labor is brutal, exhausting, and underpaid, and most Americans simply won't do it. Even when farmers offer high wages, they still can't find enough workers. Why? Because most Americans don't want to work 12-hour days in extreme weather for low pay. They don't want to do back-breaking labor for minimum wage. The only reason for these farms were even profitable in the first place was because they relied on cheap, undocumented immigrant labor. Now that those workers are gone, farmers are shutting down, food prices are rising, and these mega farmers are completely lost. They realizing too late that they actually needed the very people they spent years demonizing. The entire American economy, not just farming, depends on immigrant labor. It's not just Nebraska farmers facing a crisis. Industries like constructions, hospitality, and food service are also struggling because of the labor shortage. But MAGA Republicans never wanted to accept the reality. They pushed anti-immigration rhetoric, blaming immigrants for everything wrong in America. They spread lies about immigrants stealing jobs, when in reality, these workers were taking jobs that Americans refused to do. They acted like deporting immigrants would somehow fix the economy, but now they are seeing the truth. America cannot function without immigrant labor. And here is the funniest part. Some of these MAGA farmers are now hiring undocumented workers under the table because they have no other choice. They are still relying on the very people they claimed they were ruining the country. The hypocrisy is off the charts. You would think that after all of this, MAGA farmers would wake up and they realize they voted against their own survival. But if history has taught us anything, it's that many of them will double down instead of admitting they were wrong. They will probably blame Biden and Democrats and some other nonsense. They will keep supporting politicians who make their lives worse because at the end of the day, some of them care more about political identity than their own well-being. But here's the thing, whether they admit it or not, they are suffering because of their own choices. They played the FAFO game and now they are losing everything. FAFO season in full effect. This is just one of the many examples MAGA voters facing the consequences of their own actions. From farmers to factory workers to small business owners. People who blindly supported Trump's policies are now getting hit hard. The Nebraska farming crisis is a proof that MAGA policies don't work. Not for the economy, not for the businesses, and definitely not for the people who supported them. And the worst part, things are only getting worse. Deportation will continue, labor shortage will grow, and these farmers will be left with nothing. This is FAFO season. They effed around and now they are finding out. At the end of the day, Nebraska farmers are facing consequences of their own choices. They voted for policies that destroyed their own workforce and now they are suffering because of it. They thought Trump immigration crackdowns would only hurt the other people, but it turns out they were hurting themselves along. So this is the question. Will they finally learn the lesson, or will they keep voting for the same policies and then crying when it backfires? Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you feel bad for these farmers, or it's just another textbook FAFO moment? If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss my next video. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.